today, and we will get into it. First of all, can I check if we have any apologies? I believe none have been received. Happy days. Okay, that's number one gone. Declarations of interest. Anyone around the table will need to declare any interest in any of the items that are listed today? Well, I will be the only one who needs to. So with agenda item 5, adoption of the Borough Local Plan 2020-2040, is to be clear and transparent that Endurance site owners or landowners of proposed AB2 site are clients of 5654 and Company, who I work with in a private capacity as a senior advisor. To be absolutely clear, I informed Gordon, the chief executive, on the 13th of May of that potential conflict when coming in to meet the senior member officers, and obviously have subsequently made sure with both the chief executive and deputy chief executive that I have absolutely no involvement whatsoever with that particular site, and that has been purely delegated to Councillor Shaw. We have only ever received one email from Endurance to me directly requesting a meeting. I have not personally responded. That email was forwarded to senior officers, and that has been responded to and made clear that they are not to engage with me directly. So for the clarity and importance of transparency, that is a conflict of interest. But of course, I have been told by a monitoring officer I am indeed able to talk about the entirety of the local plan because, of course, it covers more than just that one particular site. But just to make sure everyone's clear. And so that's for items 5. Technically, I probably add item 6 because it's another local plan objection, but predominantly number 5. Item number 3, meeting minutes of the previous cabinet, pages 5 to 8 in your packs. If you can please look through, but ask if there's any reason that the minutes cannot be accepted, or indeed if we're happy to proceed and accept those minutes. Any cabinet members happy to accept? Martin, happy to propose? Anyone else happy to second? Graham?
Okay, happy to second.
Oh, Andrew, thank you very much. Okay, perfect. So all approved? Little hand in the air, just so we just don't care. There we go. Perfect. Thank you very much. So that has been approved of the minutes of the previous meeting. We now go to item agenda number 4, Wally's Quarry update. We will go to Nesta to introduce the report.
Thank you very much, Leader. So this report on Wally's Quarry odour issues provides an update since the last Cabinet report, providing data focusing on the period of March to May 2026. I'm pleased to inform that in respect of odour and site management, there's positive news. In 2026 to date, there's been 7 complaints of odour received by the Borough Council. The report also details monitoring undertaken by officers, with mostly no odour being observed, but 2 occasions of a distinct odour being observed on Cemetery Road and Barnacle Place in April. The hydrogen sulphide monitoring completed by officers also recorded a 0 level. The air quality data from the mobile monitoring facility show 0% exceedance of the WHO odour annoyance level for all weeks except 1 week in March, where this was 0.9% exceedance. It's noted in the report there is now only 1 MMF, which is the mobile monitoring air quality stations at Gallingale, with the station at Marys Way having been removed. The UEA also provided an update on their website with regard to the stockpile on site. The report provides updates from all relevant agencies and confirms that at Newcastle will continue to monitor the situation, and there are proposals to establish a cross-party working group. Cabinet has asked to note the report, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Anyone with any particular questions? If I may, Nesta, just quickly ask, where do we know we are at with any legal proceedings regarding any executives related to Wally's Quarry Limited at this moment in time?
So the Borough Council isn't involved in terms of taking any legal proceedings. Obviously, any action that we were taking was in relation to the abatement notice, which is no longer in existence. I'm not aware of any timescales in terms of cases. I think the EA have identified that they were looking at legal proceedings, but we don't have any further details in relation to that. They have committed to update if there is anything and put it on their engagement website.
Thank you very much. And also in terms of monitoring stations, where are we at present with those again? Sorry.
So in relation to monitoring stations, there's currently one, which is measuring a whole range of pollutants. So that is on the Gallingale estate. Historically, that is the site where the highest recordings have been taken over throughout the whole period. And that is one site that has been consistently there since the beginning of the incident, but it is the only station that remains at this moment in time.
Thank you very much. Anyone with any further comments? I'll just put on record, first of all, to the officers, thank you for all your hard work over the years that you've been leading on this particular case. And I'm delighted that the Borough Council was so forthright in its action, and therefore rightly would also like to congratulate the previous administration for the hard work that they put in when it came to solving and tackling and leading the charge against both Wally's Quarry Limited and, frankly, from my own perspective, the Environment Agency, who were slow to respond but eventually have answered the call. And now what is important is we seek justice for the members of our community after this site has long blighted it, not just obviously around those sites directly linked to it, but of course even here in our town centre and as far afield, having remembered the previous Member of Parliament going around and doing a late night sniffing video to see all the way to the boundaries of Stoke-on-Trent North, Kidsgrove and Torque in my days as a Member of Parliament in that particular constituency. So it's incredibly great that the Borough Council has led the charge so strongly. Sorry, there we go. I'm going to be tongue-tied. I'm going to try it. And I would be keen to just understand, Esther, finally, there has been calls regarding a public inquiry. Do we have any indication from the government if they're willing to engage in such action?
In terms of that, requests have been made for a public inquiry. The report does detail that we had a response to that, and there is no support for that at this moment in time.
Thank you. Well, I certainly think that whilst the Environment Agency is conducting legal proceedings against potential individuals, we should allow that process to see itself through, but absolutely believe that once that comes to a conclusion, that we will reaffirm our commitment to pushing for a public inquiry. And I think that's very important. One will only show the evidence of how hard you as officers and the previous administration were working behind the scenes to get justice, but also get answers. I think that residents are long overdue. So I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Therefore, can I just ask, by show of hands again in Cabinet, everyone happy to note the contents of this update and the report? Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. We then go on to item number 5. As I say, I refer again to my declaration of interest and register of interest. Adoption of the Borough Plan 2020-2040. Alan, if I can pass over to you, please.
Thank you, Leader. Good afternoon, members. This item is considered from page 21 of your reports pack. As a reminder, local plans set the vision and framework for how the borough will grow and sets targets for jobs and housing, along considering matters such as infrastructure and retail. The council has been preparing its local plan since 2021, since leaving a joint arrangement with the Stoke-on-Trent, and submitted the plan for examination on the 20th of December. The development of the plan has involved a number of consultation stages and has been informed by a significant evidence base. Local plan examination hearing sessions were held throughout May and June 2025. And then following that, main modifications or changes as a result of the examination hearing sessions were consulted upon from November to December 2025. The inspector issued a final report on the local plan on the 19th of May, and this marks the end of the local plan examination. The inspector in her report concludes that the plan can provide an appropriate basis for planning in the borough and can be found sound and legally compliant, subject to a list of main modifications. Modifications include changes to policy wording alongside the removal of several housing allocations from the local plan, and this is summarised on page 23 of the agenda pack. No further changes can be made to the local plan. Options available to the council include a binary choice now to adopt the plan with modifications from the inspector or to not adopt the local plan. The Cabinet report therefore recommends that full council adopt the local plan, subject to incorporating the main modifications identified by the inspector alongside consequential changes to the policies map. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Alan. Anyone first with questions they want to ask regarding the local plan? Well, Alan, you have me grill again. So obviously, just for clarity, we have written, as you know, to the planning inspector after that 19th of May approval of the current local plan as it's drafted, seeking to make amendments both in terms of certain policies, but also to open up the possibility of certain sites being able to be removed and replaced with others if that was viable. Can I just check what was the response that we received from the planning inspector?
The response confirms that the examination has now ended following the receipt of the inspector's report, and there is no way of changing any aspects of the plan.
Thank you very much. So it is obviously a binary choice. Now, the only thing I have here, Alan, is obviously with the recommendation to council to adopt the borough local plan. I suppose this is where I might ask you, Gordon, as well. Are we allowed to make any amendments to the recommendation page at this stage? Because at present, I would still feel that there is time, one, to be had with my own group to discuss the issue further. But second of all, currently trying to seek reassurances from other group leaders across the council regarding this, particularly the Conservative group leader, who is indeed the instigator, the writer, the deliverer of this draft local plan that was brought before us, and is therefore, in my opinion, was responsible for this local plan, and was hoping that he'd be willing to second potentially any motion that come before full council. But unfortunately, I'm unable to say with any confidence whether or not that is an accepted position, seeing as I keep getting different responses when I've had private conversations with him in order to gain those assurances. So I'd like to have it much clearer about the fact that we are willing for this to go to full council on the 8th of July, but we reserve as a administration whether or not we seek to approve it until further conversations can be had with other group leaders, as well as obviously my own group.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I think whilst Alan set out the choice that members have at full council for which this paper will go is a binary one. We're happy to look at the recommendation wording and what that entails before the publication of the full council papers next week.
If I can just add to that, it is actually, I'm sure you're aware, you will already have been advised by your officers that as you and indeed the Chief Executive said, this is a binary choice, but I would urge Council to be very careful before it doesn't accept the plan as it stands, because it could leave the Council open to quite a lot of quite expensive litigation.
On a particular point, Alan, I just want to check, with the number of sites that are currently proposed within the local plan, do we know how many of those currently have applications sort of sitting and waiting, and what would be the likely outcome if the local plan was not adopted, if planning was therefore put in for those sites? Is it likely that the council will be able to reject, or would the likelihood end up that we would face appeals and therefore be unsuccessful, and what costs roughly are associated with such appeals?
In a more general sense, I can indicate that there have been applications already made to allocations included in the plan, including at Land at Junction 16 and a site off Whitmore Road for 600 odd homes. Those applications are in the system already, and we are aware of other allocations or site promoters who are looking to bring forward allocations once the local plan is subject to the local plan being adopted.
And if the local plan is not adopted, Alan, what is the risk to all green spaces, in particularly green belt?
Again, in general terms, not having an up-to-date policy context within a local plan may expose the council to speculative development in order to meet identified development needs. We are currently not able to demonstrate a 5-year supply of homes, and that's been an issue considered at planning appeal. There's also the possibility of direct intervention from the Secretary of State, who has the powers to approve the plan.
And for the record, there's a number of local authorities that have just had some of their powers related to planning taken, if I'm not mistaken. Can we just sort of elaborate why that might be, and would this council be at risk of such action if it were not to adopt the local plan?
There has been examples recently, such as at Staffordshire Moorlands, in relation to powers in relation to determining major applications. We are also aware of examples from other councils, such as Torbay, where there's been a direct intervention from the Secretary of State, who has asked them to undertake certain actions in respect of their local plan.
Well, with regards to the motion, whilst absolutely I'm happy for the Cabinet to note the outcome of the inspector's report, I was wondering, Gordon, whether it be possible to say that the administration would make a statement on the 3rd of July as its intention, whether or not it would support the local plan ahead of a meeting, and hope that, and I see the Deputy Conservative Group Leader in the room today, that we could therefore come to some sort of arrangement around that, so that what I hope would be something that the politics can be taken out of, and in the end make sure that a decision is made that's in the interest of the borough, understanding the risk situation of either adopting, and that obviously would come at a consequence to certain communities, but also the risks that have been highlighted today of not adopting the plan, both in terms of planning and legally to this council. And obviously we as an administration would like to make sure that we take the action that is in the best interest, but also understands how to be smart with taxpayers' money. Is that at all possible, Gordon?
Yeah. I think what we can do is to have a wording that reflects that the administration wishes to see productive and engaging conversation with all groups ahead of the decision, and that there's a wish from the administration to have that in place in good time ahead of full council decision. You won't necessarily be able to mandate that other groups do agree to that, but we can set out that the administration's intent in the recommendation.
Okay, well, on that basis, can I ask if Cabinet are happy for that to go ahead based on the reports that made? If you show of hands on that, just so I can see. Perfect. Thank you very much. As I say, we will hopefully look forward to constructive conversation with other groups and to come to this conclusion that's in the best interest of the people of Newcastle-under-Lyme Borough, understanding all the risks that are associated with both decisions. Item number 6, Alan, we're back to you again. The new local plan, hilariously. So this is off the basis, Alan, if I'm not mistaken, that we have a situation where the government, the Labour-led government, has introduced an additional 2,000 plus housing target requirement within Newcastle-under-Lyme Borough. And therefore, because the current draft Conservative local plan does not meet that housing target, that we would therefore be therefore expected, probably is the best way of putting it, to bring a plan forward to meet the new housing target.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, the report starts on page 203 of your reports pack. Transitional arrangements in the 2024 National Planning Policy Framework allowed the local plan 2020 to 2040 to be examined. It also introduced a new method for calculating housing need, increasing the borough's requirement to around 559 dwellings per year compared to 400 per year in the emerging plan. As our local plan provides for less than 80% of that figure, 400 compared to the 559 figure, which is approximately 72%, the authority is required to start preparing a new local plan. Regulations published on the 25th of March state that the council must start preparing a new local plan in accordance with the new local plan system. The new system includes several stages outlined on page 206 of the report, and includes 3 gateway stages and 3 consultation stages, including a scoping stage to consider the content engagement of the plan, followed by draft plan and final draft stages. The regulations require the council to start plan making by issuing a notification of commencement by the 30th of June, alongside a timetable to complete the plan. We also require through regulations to move towards Gateway 1 by the end of October this year. The timetable anticipates the local plan will be submitted for examination in October 2028. The new local plan system is designed to be more digitally led and support the council in preparing a plan within 23 months, starting from the end of this October. It is expected that local plan is prepared and examined within a 30-month period. The council has been successful with some initial funding from government to support the early stages of plan making, but further additional funding will be required to support the local plan, as noted in the report, to refresh evidence base, etc. In light of this, the report recommends that Cabinet approve the preparation of the new local plan and issues notice of intention to commence and local plan timetable by the 30th of June 2026, and delegates authority to officers in consultation with the leader to undertake necessary early steps associated with the new local plan, including governance arrangements. The report instructs officers to bring back reports to Cabinet at key stages of the local plan, including at draft plan, final draft plan, and submission of a local plan for examination. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Any questions or comments from anyone? God, it's just going to be me moaning today, is it? Right, well, first of all, it won't shock you, Alan, from the conversations we've had, that this is a complete and utter abomination, in my view, not of your making, nor of this local authorities, but that of a Labour-led government. Well, I think led is a strong word, seeing as it's now leadless, having seen the Prime Minister choose to resign after being a successful coup led by the now Member of Parliament for Makerfield, Andy Burnham. The idea that we are being asked at a time of local government reorganisation dangling above our heads, which we were expecting some decision on in July, but I think we can all see the farce in the idea that will actually take place. The idea that we're being asked to come to put forward tens of thousands of officers' hours' time and millions of pounds of taxpayers' money into a local plan that will never see the light of day, potentially, if local government reorganisation goes ahead, just makes a complete mockery of the situation. Hence why, unfortunately, Alan, I feel that as Cabinet, we cannot approve the preparation for a new local plan. I have written to the Secretary of State to say that whilst we are awaiting local government reorganisation decision-making to take place, that it would be sensible to at the very least, pause this process and therefore enable more common sense pragmatism to be allowed, aka if we're going to have to dedicate thousands of hours of officer time and millions of taxpayers' pounds towards local government reorganisation, I don't want to be then doing that whilst also investing in a local plan, as I say, that will never be published. Sadly, I've not yet had a response from what I can see of the Secretary of State. I suspect he's busy begging for his job. But what I would be therefore mindful of is that we should not proceed, and therefore I will happily write to the Secretary of State to make abundantly clear we will refuse to take part in any local plan process going forward, because we simply do not believe that we should have to have 2,000 additional homes put into our borough, whilst in Greater London, under Mayor Sadiq Khan, he's having his housing targets dramatically slashed, as are other metropolitan areas. It's simply not fair that Newcastle is expected to pick up the tab because of others' failures in cities like London. So I therefore would move on this occasion, Alan. But of course, I appreciate there are risks with that, and I'll let you outline, because obviously the public will be watching, what are the risks associated with us rejecting to take part of this process?
The preparation of the local plan is a statutory requirement, and the regulations published at the end of March of this year noted that councils, through transitional arrangements such as their own, are required to start the local plan making process by the end of this month. There is also a risk financially that we were provided with monies to help us start the new through the new local plan system, and that money was contingent on us starting the programme at the end of June. As noted in the previous item, there is also a risk of Secretary of State intervention in terms of any decision not to move forward with a local plan at this stage.
Craig, with relation to the money that we received, I'm assuming that we have that still in full, and if the government were to want it back, we could send it back?
Yes, I can confirm we have the money set aside.
Perfect, thank you. Well, my view is that the cost of that, I think, Alan, was around 108,000 we've received?
That's correct, yes.
Well, the money sat in the bank waiting. It is taxpayers' money, but it's sat there waiting. It's not money that we have to find. And in my view, it's a risk worth taking, because I don't want to be part of some Westminster farce that is of its own making, having lived with the horrors of that between 2019 and 2024, and therefore desperate to make sure that we don't see the scourge of Whitehall be purged upon our great borough of Newcastle-under-Lyme. So if the Cabinet are happy, we would seek to reject the recommendation in order to tell the Secretary of State instead that we refuse to take part in any process. If everyone's happy with that, please raise a hand. Perfect, thank you. I know a lot of work went into that, Alan. Hopefully common sense will prevail from whoever the Secretary of State is by the time that they probably write me a response. Item number 7, Newcastle Community Safety Partnership. Roger.
Thank you, Leader. This report sets out information for Cabinet members on progress made by the Newcastle Community Safety Partnership over the last year in 25-26 and looks ahead to priorities for 26-27 based on the 3-yearly full strategic assessment refresh, which examines trends in crime and antisocial behaviour and provides data on crime types. So in headline terms, crime in ASB has reduced by 20.4% in Newcastle over the last 3 years, and crime and antisocial behaviour in Newcastle is now lower than the rate for the Staffordshire Police Force area as a whole and lower than the regional rates for the West Midlands. So that's positive news. There are always local fluctuations in rates for different crime types, and the Community Safety Partnership works together to deploy resources into areas where there are localised issues, particularly in Newcastle town centre, which, like many other towns, is a priority area. So this report sets out a detailed review of data and a comprehensive list of the partnership activities and operations which are in progress to respond to identified priorities, which for 2026-27 are violence, theft, stalking and harassment, and antisocial behaviour. There are other issues local to Newcastle which are being addressed, are business crime, shoplifting, domestic abuse, and drugs and county lines. A copy of the local police and crime plan is appended to the report, which further sets out the response to the above issues. And the report also seeks authority from Cabinet to accept grant funding for the nighttime economy pilot town bid if this is successful. And we're still waiting for the outcome of that, but it's expected any minute now. So members are therefore recommended to receive the report and note the work of the Community Safety Partnership. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Roger. Anyone with any questions or any comments? Graham, I know you're very passionate about this.
Do we have any rotas at all for visible policing in Newcastle town centre especially?
Any quotas?
No, any rotas.
Oh, rotas, sorry.
Didn't you? You know, is it a regular occurrence that the officers are deemed to go out at a given time? Because for actual police officers, we just don't see them in the daytime at all.
Yeah. I think the focus tends to be on the nighttime economy for obvious reasons. That's when the bulk of the issues occur, and they have got a rota for safer policing over the weekends. I think daytime policing is dependent on what other priorities come in. Obviously, they're a responsive policing unit as well. So, they have neighbourhood policing, so they're out in communities, like Chesterton and Kidsgrove and so on. They do have a presence in the town centre, but as I say, it's dependent on what other shouts come in during the course of the day.
Yeah. It just seems as though we need some kind of zero, policy with regards to antisocial behaviour, especially in the town centre. You've only just got to walk in there on any given day and, there's just no police visible at all, ever. And I can just say that in the last month, because I've been taking, a full record on a daily basis in the town centre. I've never seen, I've never, well.
I only laugh, Graham, because I've had the text messages every day.
I've never seen one. Yet the amount of criminal offences that I record with my own eyes is, well, it's incredible, really. And no wonder, no wonder crime rates are dropping. Crime rates might be dropping, but that's just recorded crime rates. Crime activity is rocketing, undoubtedly, in the town centre. And, you can ask your market traders, you can ask anybody who just literally sees it on a daily basis. But we never see uniformed officers. I mean, real police officers. PCSOs are even hard to find now. I've seen 2 today. I don't know if it's got any coincidence with this meeting, I don't know, but, real police officers, never see them walking about, might turn up in a car on a 999 call, but visible policing. Do we have any sort of, as I said at the start, rotas and where given officers are going to go on the beat like they used to? Or not, or do they just wait like downstairs, upstairs now, isn't it, of course, until they're called? I don't know what the situation is.
Would you like me to ask the police to provide us some information on rotas for daytime policing?
Yeah, I would do. Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
Great.
I think it does come off the back of, I've seen a number of emails off traders, and the Newcastle bid have raised this as well, as you know, Roger, with the fact that particularly in the early mornings, there may be people who are rough sleeping or just drunk and acting disorderly. These people need to be swept off the streets, as far as I'm concerned, immediately. They are a nuisance and a public a bad, not a public good. They put people wanting to come into our town centres off. I mean, we have got the PSPO, which did come under the previous administration. How successful has that been? I note that Stafford in Borough in their PSPO has just included face coverings, which is something I would love to also include, because it is an absolute public nuisance and menace, and many sort of thuggish behaviour is allowed to get away with, because it's hard to identify individuals. So I'd be keen to understand how we feel about the PSPO is currently going, and whether that PSPO can be transferred, or how easy is that transferred, particularly to other communities in places like Kidsgrove.
Yeah, I mean, the PSPO for Newcastle Town Centre has been successful in terms of, as I say, the kind of hotspot activity times in the nighttime economy. That's when the bulk of the breaches occur, and the bulk of the enforcement occurs. In terms of the including things like face coverings, I would have to check through the current PSPO to see whether that contains anything that could be interpreted in that way, or whether there's an opportunity to include that prior to the next scheduled review, which will be 3 years from now. We can do that. In terms of the sort of early morning issues that Councillor Shaw has mentioned and yourself, it can be quite complex, because a lot of those people have chaotic lives and complex needs, and it's not just the case of the sort of enforcement end of work. There's also a lot of work goes on to try and engage with people and support them. So things like rough sleeping and so on. There's a rough sleeping team which would go out and engage with those people, try and signpost them into support areas, often quite successfully. But where those people won't engage and can't, or refuse to engage, we do have powers then to start looking at moving them on from the town centre. As I've said before, a lot of it is evidence-based, so it's difficult to just act immediately without having an evidence base compiled that then gives us the opportunity to use the various tools that are at our disposal to do that. But that work is going on in the background. It's often not visible to members of the public, and I can understand there's sometimes frustration around that, but the work is going on, and once we get to that evidence threshold level, that's when we can act. And I think, as I've said before, maybe we need to get better at communicating that where we do have successes. But it's just to reassure members that a lot of work goes on behind the scenes in trying to compile evidence and put cases together to deal with persistent offenders.
And that's my concern, Roger, is it's those people who are persistent in terms of ignoring the support that's been put on offer to them. And frankly, I have no compassion for people who continuously refuse the support and engagement and the taxpayers' money that's offered to try and give these people an opportunity to turn their lives around, where the majority, as you rightly say, do actively and proactively engage and seek that support, and in terms of turning their lives around. And quite frankly, as I say, I would like a sort of dream will be an El Salvador model where we just come and sweep these people up off the streets. Ultimately, I don't want them loitering in our town. It does, I think, endanger the wider public. It does put people off our town centre. We are a graduate town, of course, and that does mean that particularly young women and girls will feel very intimidated by some of the behaviour and attitudes and just appearance of certain individuals and the way they are, sadly, in the doorways of our shops, and the impact that has on our local economy is totally and completely unacceptable. But I appreciate there is work going on behind the scene. I think we do need to work on having a very good strategy on communication to get reporting levels up to where they need, so that we can then use the full extent of the legal powers in the first instance in order to take that legal action, rather than, quite frankly, what I call a namby-pamby approach, where we go through lots of different phases. I like to go to the max in the first offence to make sure we send a clear signal that these people will not blight our town. Martin, I know you had a comment, sorry.
Thank you, Leader. It's just reiterating what was said from experience of yesterday with myself, is that if there is routers out there, or if there isn't, should I say, then is it possible for us to look at that there is a presence out there? For the first time in many years, I actually ventured out into Newcastle to get some lunch, and I found it quite intimidating, the amount of people, and especially the fact that when I was walking round, there was a distinct aroma of the old Moroccan woodbines. And now if there was a policing presence, then they would pick up on that and have just cause to check and search. But if they're not out there, they're not going to see it. And what else is possible to ask people to be more responsive and reporting these matters? Because, like I think I mentioned before, as some of the figures, as you're aware, are skewed to me, because people are fed up of reporting. Don't want, I can't be bothered. It either takes too long to do when they're sitting waiting to get through. Nothing, they believe nothing ever happens. And it's great to hear that there's something going on behind the scenes, but I do believe we need to look at these towns like Newcastle, Kidsgrove, where this behaviour is, and start. We can sit and talk about it forever. We need to start practicing what we're potentially preaching by, dealing with some of these situations. But yesterday was quite an eye-opener for me, to the extent of not totally antisocial behaviour, but I think smoking wacky-backy in a public area is a no-no, especially around the kids that are there and the older generation. Thank you.
I just think, Roger, what would be good is to sit down with the neighbourhood policing commander and really go over kind of what the strategy is and where we can work in collaboration with them. I mean, I know the fact that on the PCSO front, the Conservative Police Crime Commissioner has reduced hours of PCSOs, and that has a knock-on impact. And obviously, I know how hard those PCSOs work in communities. I'm very proud of the one we have over in Kidsgrove Parish and the number of other officers there and the work they're trying to do. But we do need, I think, to make sure that there is a clear partnership update on this document going forward in terms of our demands of the officers and what we're expecting in return of us trying to work with them to provide, whether that be the CCTV coverage, the rangers that go around the community, obviously as well the reporting systems that we have in place. I do think that there's a feeling that the police should be and could be stepping up in terms of supporting. But absolutely, we do note the work that the Borough Council's done, appreciate the officers' time, and of course, our fingers crossed for the nighttime economy pilot town, where I think we have a very strong bid in, and I hope that common sense will prevail and that we will be awarded. And I think it's up to 3 areas, if I'm not mistaken, Roger.
Yeah, I think so. And as I say, we just hope we should hear any day now as to whether we've been successful, and that's about trying to put activities into that sort of twilight zone in the town between sort of schools and colleges finishing and until the sort of pubs get busier later on. And I think that's often the time when we do experience antisocial behaviour. So to have sort of legitimate activities going on around that time slot would help with that natural surveillance. The more people you have enjoying the town centre legitimately, the more of a deterrent it is for the people who are going to be up to no good.
Absolutely. Well, if everyone's happy to note the report as it is, and obviously authorise the Service Director regarding, obviously, the nighttime economy pilot, just raise your hands quickly so I can see. Happy days. Thank you very much indeed. Next, we go to the Newcastle-under-Lyme Community Fund. Craig, if I hand over to you.
Thank you, Leader. I'm pleased to present this report that proposes the establishment of the Newcastle-under-Lyme Community Fund. It will provide each Borough Councillor with up to £2,500 annually to support projects and initiatives that address local priorities within their wards. The fund is designed to empower councillors to respond directly to community needs, drawing on their local knowledge and relationships with residents, voluntary organisations, community groups and businesses. It aims to strengthen community wellbeing, encourage local collaboration and support projects that deliver tangible benefits for residents. The scheme will operate through a clear and transparent protocol to ensure accountability, value for money and alignment with the Council's objectives. Funding will be focused on initiatives that meet identified local needs and help our communities thrive. The proposal aligns Newcastle-under-Lyme support for ward-level initiatives with similar arrangements provided by the county and city councils. I'm happy to recommend that Cabinet approves the establishment of the fund that allocates, as I've said, a maximum of £2,500 per annum to address local priorities within Borough Councillors' wards. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Graham, also you work with Craig, so do you have any comments that you want to make?
Yes, I would like to place on record, Craig's help in initiating this fund. Where did if you just want to say where the money has actually come from, Craig?
Yes, of course. So The fund will £2,500 for 44 members, gives a total of 110,000. Our previous fund, similar fund, Civic Pride Investment Fund, had a budget of 22,000. The remaining 88,000 will be vied from a previous contribution to the Civic Growth Fund. The parts that we're varying from the Civic Growth Fund are around sustainable environment and town and place.
Thank you.
No, this is great work, and obviously very excited because this means for those wards that are fortunate to have 3 borough councillors and a county councillor, that's now £10,000 potentially for that community, which obviously can go a long way to supporting many incredible local community groups or charitable organisations, your Scouts and your Cubs and your Rainbows and your Squirrels, as I've learned the variety of different clubs that now exist. And of course, obviously local people who run and lead litter picks, for example, but also the fact that we've worked hard to make the scheme viable. I think, Craig, that if a county councillor, for example, wants to buy a grit bin and fill it with grit, that the borough part of the funding can help support towards the purchase of the grit bin itself. But obviously the grit and the filling of that would have to be a responsibility of the county council, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. So we could purchase the bin. The ongoing maintenance of it would have to sit with the county.
That's great news. And I think that makes a huge difference because at the end of the day, our local councillors are on the ground in their local community and have an understanding of what's happening. And I think will also just lead to better and more positive interaction overall in terms of delivery into what we do within our community. So I'm very happy and very proud to have seen this introduction of this fund, and obviously very proud of this reform-led administration for introducing it. And if everyone's happy, we'll raise our hands again and say we recommend it kick on. But there we go. We're already a bit into the new financial year, so they haven't got long to go to spend. So I'm sure the invitations will come in flowing now from local different groups. Next one is Brampton Museum application to the National Lottery for museum improvements. Jo?
Thank you, Leader. This report outlines proposals to bid for funding for the Brampton Museum. As members will know, the museum's a well thought of visitor attraction that supports a wide range of visitors, from the schools that come for curriculum work through to visitors to the exhibitions in the gallery space. The council's been very successful in previous years in bidding for external funding to support the work of the museum, and this report seeks Cabinet support to bid to the National Heritage Lottery funding in the funding criteria of up to £150,000. The project will seek to make improvements to the upstairs exhibition area, deliver 2 exhibitions celebrating the history of Newcastle, activities for children in the school holidays and intergenerational events, and cost-saving measures to improve the installation and lighting. The bid requires some minor match funding, which can be delivered through the conservation and exhibition budgets. As an officer, I'm happy to recommend that we progress to make this funding bid. I'm happy to take any questions on the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jo. Any questions? Nice one. Well done, Jo. You got the... Well, like I say, is I think that Brampton Museum obviously is a very important community asset. Brings a lot of joy to the local community. Is one of those assets that this community will always want to cherish and protect and do everything it can to be successful. I think that the idea that we could, for as you say, a small sort of matching contribution, well, not even matching contribution, a small contribution. I don't know, was that 100% less contribution? Yeah, about there we go, Graham. I've been working on the old math. 100% less. That was a joke for anyone listening, because I know the media don't take jokes very easily. I think this is a slam dunk at the end of the day, and so I'm happy to approve as recommended, and I'm assuming all by a show of hands again. There we go. And then, Jo, we come back to you again. The pet crematorium progress report is something that took a while for me to get my head around, but glad in terms, I didn't realise just what a booming business this is. Councillor Simpson has certainly been making the case that this is going to be a great opportunity. I would be keen as well, Jo, when you outline the report, if you could also just say, because I think there might be questions about Stoke-on-Trent City Council has initiated what some others are saying is similar, but actually there is a difference. It would be good, I think, for the record of what our offer is and how it's different to that of the City Council.
Thank you, Leader. So as the report outlines, the council officers have been working on plans to develop a pet cremation service over the past 12 months based at Bradwell. It's important to note that the new service is totally separate to the current services that are offered at Bradwell, and the proposals is for a service that focuses on personal services where all pets are treated with dignity and on an individual basis. In terms of the progress, a planning application has now been submitted and the tendering process for the actual cremator has been completed. The report outlines how that progress has been made and that there is a preferred contractor recommended to deliver that cremator. The proposals from that contractor fits in with the business plan, and the physical size of their cremator fits within our site boundaries. The business case for the service has been reviewed and updated. Further details are outlined in the confidential report, but the proposal is to continue with that outlined business case. The service is going to trade as Loved and Loyal Pet Crematorium, and the web addresses have been purchased. In terms of your questions about relating to Stoke, Stoke have focused to date on having a scattering area for the cremated remains of pets, and should a resident of Stoke or Newcastle decide to choose to use our cremation service, they could then choose to take them ashes to Stoke to have them scattered at Carmount side, or again anywhere else that family chooses. The proposals have continued to receive positive feedback from residents, and it is very much seen as residents want to have a local service for their much loved pets, very much focusing on keeping it within the locality. The report seeks Cabinet approval to continue with the plans and signing of all the necessary contracts to enable the delivery, in particularly the purchase of the cremator. The report also recommends the adoption of the fees and charges set out in the report. I'm happy to take any further questions. Thank you.
One question quickly from me, Joe, is I believe that the planning application is currently live on the system, so the public, if they want to, can make comments.
Yes, that's right.
Yep. Okay, press it too quick. Any questions from anyone or any comments? Looking at you, Councillor Simpson, anything in particular as our resident doctor of death now, whatever it is that I'm going to call you.
So will residents be expected to bring the pets themselves to the cremation?
Yes, that's the basis. I mean, obviously, if there's a like a corporate contract with the vets, then obviously the vets can deliver them to Bradwell. But yeah, it is very much based on a personalised service with a lot of families choosing to bring the pet themselves.
And what type of pets are we talking about? Obviously, because we've got their beloved horse, or is there a certain size that we're talking about here?
Yeah, so the cremator has 2 chambers, what is classed as a large, up to a large dog size cremator, and a smaller one that would accept like your hamster kind of size, small family pet. So yeah, unfortunately, if you've got a horse, that isn't the service we offer.
You thought politics wasn't funny. This is exactly why we got into pet crematorium. Well, I am happy to note, I'm glad to see that the planning application's in. I think that the business case for this is very strong. And more importantly, I think actually having gone away and looked into this after Joe first brought it to my attention and researching and even seeing, I think the Facebook reaction on the council's Borough Council's Facebook page was one of much joy and excitement in the sense of having something special for, like you say, all of our best friends, the ones that can't talk back to us but just love us lovingly no matter what. So I think that's a great thing. So I'm certainly happy to recommend the report as it's laid out with the recommendations. I assume all others are. We'll just quickly check. Perfect. Thank you very much, Joe, and good work there. And then we come to you again, Joe. You're very popular now, Joe. We're coming to you again. So renewal of the pool water treatment systems and movable floor lift servicing and maintenance contract at the Jubilee 2.
Thank you, Leader. So as outlined, the J2 has a contract for the repair and maintenance of all the technical side of the pool that treats the water filtration chemicals and the movable parts of the pools, including the movable floor in the small pool and the lifts that are in the both pools. The current contract is due to end after 3 years on the 30th of September 2026. So in line with normal procurement regulations, we would be recommended that we go back out to tender. It's essential that we do have this contract and service in place, because without it we wouldn't be able to guarantee the safe, clean water, and that the moving parts of the pools were safe and usable by all residents. The proposal is for the contract term of 2 years with a 1-year extension, subject to successful service delivery, and the report seeks the approval to tender with delegation to award the contract. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Any questions for anyone? I suppose the current contractor, was there a possibility of just extending the terms of their contract, or is it just we're abiding by a normal procurement process?
We have used the extensions that were set out in the original contract. So the advice of the procurement manager is to be compliant with the procurement regulations. We should go back out to retender, which obviously enables the current contractor to provide that.
Andrew.
Just a quick question, Joe. Why are we looking just for 2+1? Are we just constrained by procurement regulations or frameworks we're using?
No, we could go for a longer service. A lot of the contracts we've been doing on the 2+1 on the basis of waiting for a decision on the local government review and whether we combine with any other councils similar contracts of this nature.
Government organisation is still looming large over our heads. Well, I'm happy for the approval and assume all others are. There we go. Perfect. Thank you very much. Apologies. Sorry. Item number 12, financial and performance review report of the fourth quarter 2025-2026. Craig.
Thank you, Leader. This report's in 2 parts, so I'll cover the financial performance part of it and then I'll hand over to Georgie for the performance part. So the council finished 25-26 in a stable financial position. We achieved £115,000 revenue surplus against a £19.7 million budget. Strong planning income, investment interest and reduced borrowing costs have helped to offset income pressures in leisure, parking and bereavement services. Capital investment has remained a major focus of the council, with over £27 million spent on regeneration, town deals and community projects. Whilst capital expenditure was below the planned £36 million, most of the variance reflects projects being reprofiled into 26-27 rather than reductions in scope. The Audit and Standards Committee will be presented with the Council's draft statement of accounts for 25-26 on the 29th of June for review and publication approval ahead of the statutory deadline. And if I could just sum up in one sentence, I think overall the year demonstrates sound financial management, compliance with all of our statutory deadlines and continued momentum on key regeneration priorities. Thank you. I'll just hand over to George, or do you want me to take any questions?
Please hand over, then we'll come back.
Thanks.
We're so efficient we don't even get a mic each. Look at that. So the quarter 4 performance report evidences our KPI measures against the aligned council plan, which is part of the 22-26 council plan, looking at the priorities for the borough. The report measures 49 indicators, 70% of which are on target, 30% have fallen short of that target, and against all of those that have not quite met that target, there is then some narrative that explains what's going on with the services, both internally and externally, that describes why that might be. We produce this report 4 times a year, as you can see, and we consistently have good performance across our services. The purpose of the report being that we look and see where we can make improvements that then benefit the residents. It's a good final report of 25-26, and I ask Cabinet to acknowledge and accept that.
Very much. Martin.
Just to reiterate that and obviously clear up our section. I know it's split into two, but, meeting with yourself yesterday made a lot of the figures clearer to me. I still have some queries, but that's what we'll work towards, especially like comparing percentage onto figures. I'd rather see it the other way slightly. The reason being is that people may misinterpret that when it's saying 70% of 33, it's only 23. Do you see where I'm going? So it was just certain things with that, but I think, in general, and from touch on the finance side, don't know if I can or not. Can I jump in your side, Gordon? It speaks for itself, coming out of the financial year with what I read, how well it is. And, as in performance, you've done some great work out there. And I look forward to really polishing it and shaping it up better. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Craig, with the financial situation, can I just quickly clarify? There were changes to pension contributions, and there was also interest secured from Town Deal Investment, was there not, which has aided council finances?
Yes, so pension contributions will have helped to bridge our gap for 26-27. And you're right, interest that we've had by receiving Town Deals monies in advance of spend has generated interest, and that's helped to offset some income shortfalls that we've had during the year.
What was the plan? Obviously, this as a performance under the previous administration. So what was the plan with the finances where obviously Town Deal money is starting to be spent and therefore will no longer be in the accounts? What was the idea for any potential shortfalls going forward?
Yes, so we've not relied budget-wise on any of that interest. So for 26-27, the budget for interest receivable is nil. In terms of those income areas where we've experienced some losses going back to COVID, in each year of the MTFS, we've had a reduction in terms of income levels that we're receiving. So by the end of this year, I would hope that income-wise we'll be in a lot better position.
Thank you. And then finally, from me, I suppose this relates in part to some of the stuff that we saw. I suppose, Roger, this is actually a bit of you, because you see fly tipping is an indicator that comes up, and obviously we've been average 4.77 days, which is obviously within target. I suppose where the indicator on the light flashes is obviously the fact that we're below target when it comes to actually enforcement, but I thought I'd give you the chance to sort of clear the record on that particular one.
Thanks, Councillor Gillis. Yeah, I think previously we'd measured enforcement in a way that made it look like we weren't taking action in relation to every single fly tip, which we are. So what we're going to do now in going forward in the performance framework is every fly tip incident that occurs is investigated. So the street team go out, they look through the rubbish. If they find any evidence, they pass it through to my team, who then pursue any enforcement action that we can take. But the actual investigation itself is an enforcement action. So pretty much 100% of incidents have some sort of enforcement action associated with them. As I've said before, we can only then proceed to like a fixed penalty notice or prosecution if there's evidence found at the fly tip, and that's where the issue is at the moment, that we're not getting that level of evidence. But we've got a proposal in at the moment to fund some mobile redeployable CCTV cameras. We know where the hotspots are. We track that data through Power BI. So if we can get those cameras purchased and into use, hopefully it'll do two things. One, it'll be a deterrent because we'll have to put signs up at each of the hotspots to say cameras in operation, so that might stop it happening in the first place. And secondly, if it does happen, we should be able to get some better evidence which would enable us to take more enforcement action.
Thank you, Roger. And on the planning front, and it's planning enforcement in particular I'm talking about, the year-to-date, again, hopefully I've read the figures correct, the year-to-date measures for informing complainants within required timescales is reported as 68.1%, which is below the 75% target. Although the Q4 in isolation figure improved to 82.4. So I was keen to understand why is it that the annual target was missed, if I've read those figures correctly.
Yeah, I'll pick up on this one, Leader. So the planning enforcement team have been working on actions around improving those figures. Obviously, again, it is an evidence-led process and reporting-led process. So they've been working closely with colleagues on refining that offer. We do have limited resources in the enforcement area. That's obviously an area we're keen to look at going forward to check that we've got the right balance in place, but it has been an improving picture, and we expect that to continue into this year.
Appreciate that, because for those who may remember, I increased fines under Section 215 of the Town and Country Planning Act due to rogue and absent landlords that plagued Burslem and Tunstall in particular, but of course, sadly, will plague parts of our town centre here in Newcastle-under-Lyme. And what I want to make sure that we're doing is using our enforcement officers to be proactive enforcement and to be very aggressive in enforcement in terms of, seeking to issue fines or take legal action against landlords and landowners who are not maintaining or looking after as required. As well as, I know, Nesta, some work that you're working on behind the scenes regarding vape shops and barber shops that we have concerns about. I think it's probably the best way I can put it regarding the way in which their business model is operating, which is obviously something that we're conscious of as an authority and that we will be seeking to take action on. I appreciate the answer that we had. And just quickly, Craig, finally from me, on the finances. So the council tax increase for the current financial year was 1.99%. What is it for the years going forward?
In the currently approved MTFS, there's an assumption that it would be a further 1.99%. We'll refine that with yourselves when we start the budget setting process around September time.
Yes, perfect. We'll start that process in September. Okay, for all those happy to note the reports, raise your hands. Perfect, thank you very much. And now we go to yourself, Gordon, on the forward plan.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. So in line with the Constitution, we will be publishing the forward plan on the first working day of July to cover up to 4 months of activity. We've obviously had the inputs from the Cabinet and the administration in respect of areas of work to pull that forward plan together. The scrutiny committees are also working through their work programs, which conjoins with this and making sure that we've got that kind of battle rhythm in place for the committees as they go forward. So that will be published on the first working day of the month as required.
Thank you very much. Item 14's urgent business. At present, there is no urgent business, but I asked Gordon if I could actually add something very briefly. Obviously, there is an encampment that's taken place nearby Aldi, and I was just keen to understand what action has been taken. Obviously, it's an eyesore to the community, and obviously there's issues or concerns regarding safety of the public there. So I was keen for us to be on the record about what work has taken place to date.
Yeah, no, thank you, Leader. The site is actually on private land, so the mobile multifunctional team have been working with the site owners and with other agencies. So obviously it is that private sector landowner to lead, and I understand they're seeking enforcement by the court for removal of that encampment. Appreciated is unsightly. We have limited powers in private land situations, but the team are closely monitoring the situation. And obviously, if those people were to move to Borough Council land, then we would move swiftly for a removal of that encampment. So I do appreciate the public concerns in this space. I think it's not the first encampment that's happened in this area. So obviously we'll be giving advice to the landlord who can choose to take it or not about securing their premises, but that's certainly what we've done previously where there is private land involved.
I believe we've been proactive, and the landlord or land site owner has been, today was the deadline. Are we confident that they have indeed started the process of taking action, that we're satisfied that they are taking necessary steps to ensure that we bring this to a swift end?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, today was the deadline, as you say. We're waiting for the report back from the landowner today, but the indications were that they were pursuing that as best they could.
And is there any indication on timescale?
Not until the landowner engages with the court, because he'll have to get a court date to secure an eviction order. or a possession order for the land to enable him to evict them. So again, once we've had that feedback from the landowner, I'll be in a better position to tell you what the timescales are likely to be.
And what action could we potentially take against the landowner if we feel that they're making insufficient efforts to clear the site?
Two things, I suppose. One, if they didn't, pursue things, we could serve a community protection warning because of the nuisance that encampment was causing, or the alarm and distress to the community. And the second thing is, and again, we are monitoring this site and it's on the police radar. So if there was any other issues, criminality associated with that site, then that opens up another avenue for action.
Thank you. Well, we'll monitor the situation closely and we'll be ready to take any action necessary against the landowner if indeed the landowner isn't taking sufficient action. But hopefully we'll get confirmation of that at some point today, and we hope that the courts will hear that quickly so we can bring this to a swift resolution. Obviously, it's a ungainly site, blighting our community, and frankly, these people are causing public nuisance and don't deserve to have their rights somehow trump the rights of hard-working, tax-paying, law-abiding residents of Newcastle-under-Lyme Borough. Well, that's we now move on to obviously disclosure of exempt information. So we move now to the exempt part of the agenda. So I ask that Cabinet resolves that the public be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the following reports, because it is likely that there will be disclosure of exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A as amended of the Local Government Act 1972.